I'm not gonna lie, I think that July might be the best month for new book releases that we've had so far this year. That might be a bold claim, but I'm standing by it. Hello, welcome back to A D in the Life, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Adi. I like to talk about books. I read books in pretty much every single genre you could think of, and so therefore these videos, we cover a lot of ground. We're doing another new release video. I'm gonna go through every single book coming out this July that I think you should add to your list. And yes, I know we all have endless TBRs already, but they're all going on my list. So you might as well suffer with me and make your list even longer. I've been doing these for the past few months. We go through my top 5 most anticipated, and then from then on, we go by release date. So I think we should just get started. Okay, starting with my most anticipated. We have a new book from one of my favorite thriller authors, Ashley Winstead, called Hot Girl Murder Club. First of all, what a fun freaking title. She actually had another book released earlier this year. I forget what it was called, but it wasn't my favorite. It also wasn't a thriller. It was a romance, literary fiction maybe of sorts. It also was about music, and I just don't seem to really like books about music, even though I love music. I'm not a serial killer. Anyways, speaking of serial killers, Hot Girl Murder Club is a thriller about this singer-actress in Hollywood who becomes basically the prime suspect for a string of murders. And so now she basically has to try to prove that she's not actually the killer. This comes out on July 14th. I'm very excited for this. I love her thrillers. One of my all-time favorites was In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife, but I also really loved This Book Will Bury Me. I just really love the characters she writes. They're all kind of unlikable, and there's always like a sprinkle of romance, which I never mind. So I'm interested to see how this one goes. Books set in Hollywood can be hit or miss for me, but I have a good feeling about this one. Okay, we've got quite a few coming out on the 21st, including what I think is probably my most anticipated, and that is Destination Funeral by Paige Harbison. I actually just started this a couple days ago. I'm already so into it. This is by the same author of The Other Side of Now, which was my favorite magical realism book that I read last year. Something about her writing just really, really clicks in my brain. This is about a group of friends who have kind of lost touch. They used to hang out with each other every summer on this island. So they reunite on the island because one of the characters' mothers passed away, and I think she was like the matriarch of this friend group. I don't exactly get the relationship between them all quite yet. I think we'll find that out later in the book. What I do know is that there is a time loop in this. And one thing you should know about me is I love a time loop. Probably one of my favorite magical realism type elements ever. I have been told that this has a little bit more romance than her other book by the author herself. And I've also been reading reviews saying it's a little bit more emotional, a little bit more serious, but I'm okay with that. I'm excited. Her writing is just, I don't know, it's easy. It's kind of like Emily Henry where it just flows so easily through your brain, and I love that. Also coming out is Not That Kind of Proposal by Victoria Levine, another author whose debut I read last year. What was that one called? Any Trope But You. That one was a rom-com set in an Alaskan resort. It was so fun. Spice was incredible. I loved that book. The second I saw she was coming out with this one, I put it on my list, and we finally made it to the month that it is releasing. So this is a romance between a hopeless romantic wedding planner and a cynical divorce lawyer, and I think the wedding planner is actually planning her ex's wedding. I don't know the connection between everyone, but like I said, her other book was hilarious. So many fun tropes. I have heard fantastic things about this one, so I can't wait. And another book coming out on the 21st, Married with Benefits by Ellie Palmer. This is actually another auto-buy romance author for me. She wrote 4 Weekends and a Funeral, one of my favorite fall romances that's not a cheesy fall romance. Top tier grumpy book boyfriend. Some serious notes to it. It definitely felt like a mix of Emily Henry and Abby Jimenez type writing, which 2 of my favorite romance authors, so sign me up. I can't wait to see what is in store for this one. If you couldn't tell by the title, this is obviously a marriage of convenience romance. I think the reason they get married is for like financial reasons, health insurance reasons. Not entirely sure, but I know it's a small town romance, a summer romance, and like I said, I love this author's writing. I'm very, very excited for this one too. And then on the 28th, we have Daybreak by Autumn Woods. So this is a second book in the Sorrow Song University duet. The first book is Nightshade. I read that earlier this year. I gobbled it up. I will say, well, you know what, before I get ahead of myself, so this is a dark academia romance book. No magic. I feel like sometimes people label dark academia books accidentally as fantasy. It's not fantasy. I'm looking at my laptop right now on Goodreads. It's labeled as fantasy romantasy. There's no magic in it. So I don't want you to go into it thinking that way. It doesn't need it. It's so good. The book had some of the best enemies to lovers tension I can't even explain to you. It was almost a 5-star read for me, and then it got a little too insta-lovey, but then the end had one of the best cliffhangers ever, and so I immediately needed to read book 2. Unfortunately, I had to wait a little bit. So Daybreak follows the aftermath. I won't give you a synopsis of book 2 because obviously that will ruin things. So in book 1, you meet Ophelia, who's parents died in some sort of freak accident, and she goes to this elite university in the Scottish countryside where they used to work, I think, or the accident happened nearby. So she's kind of going there for retribution, but also because she's smart and needs to go to school. I think though it's kind of like a post-college university age. I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, the characters are in their 20s. Anyways, in the first book, she meets this guy, Alex, who is the son of a guy that she thinks is the reason why her parents died. That's all I'm going to tell you. The first book was a great book. And also knowing that this is only a 2-book series, if you ask me, the ideal length of a series is 3 books or less, but 2 books is even better because then everything gets resolved quickly and you can just move on. Okay, I had to cut myself off. I don't even know what I was saying at that point. Let's talk about the books coming out July 7th. Starting with Last Night Was Killer by Mary Pauline Lowry. This is, I think, kind of like a comedy mystery. I'm gonna liken it to Richard Osman's books despite not knowing that because I haven't read it yet. It's about, I believe, a single mother of twins who goes on kind of like a night out bender and wakes up with a dead body in the trunk of her car. So she has to try to figure out how the dead body got there before the police catch her, basically. I mean, you can kind of tell by the cover. Also, what a fun cover. I have not read anything by this author, but the premise sounds so fun and it has really good Goodreads ratings. And I feel like this will also be a really good audiobook. So excited for this one. Then we have Crash Into Me by Robin Lee. I think this is a romance of sorts. It's about a woman, again, I don't know if she's a single mother or currently married, but she runs into this ex, maybe situationship, who used to be a model that she met on a photo shoot way back in the day. This is actually by the same author of The Idea of You. I don't know that she's written another book since that one. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what this book is like. I love how she writes books with older women in empowering situations. So I'm expecting the same out of this one. And also the cover is giving perfect beach read. Then we have Everything Was Beautiful and Nothing Hurt by Ben Reeves. This book, the premise of this one sounds honestly kind of heartbreaking. So this is about a man who lives in the modern world, but he's basically deaf and he comforts people in their final moments on Earth. He's been able to stay detached from all of these people over the years, and then he encounters somebody that is dying who I think he becomes really attached to. I love magical realism books. For some reason, I love when they're about death. I like when books romanticize dying because it makes me feel better about things. Like The Midnight Library is one of my favorite books ever. This one is getting rave reviews, so I really want to read this. And it's also under 300 pages. If you don't know this yet, I love a short book. Love. Now, Most Ardently Yours by Freya Sampson, I think is like a reimagination or a book inspired by Pride and Prejudice. This is actually not the cover. I got a special edition sent to me. This is what the cover actually looks like. Very cute. So this is about a romance author who's been struggling with finding love in real life, which actually I fully resonate with. I think she begrudgingly picks up like an old Pride and Prejudice copy and accidentally summons Mr. Darcy to life. Sounds so fun. I am a sucker for magical realism in my romances, so I'm excited to read this one. The Season of Sinking by Daphne Wollstonecraft is a thriller. It's about a woman whose mother passes away, so she goes back to her hometown, and I think it's like a small town secrets revealed situation, and I think some of the secrets have to do with her mother's death. It's also set in the summer. I think there's either a little bit of romance or the main male character might be a suspect in her mother's death, but it's also getting really good reviews on Goodreads, so I'm very excited for this one. Also, the cover, obsessed. The Mashup by Laura Marie Myers is another magical realism romance, and the premise of this one sounds so fun. It's about a woman who gets broken up with on her 35th birthday, kind of out of nowhere, and she accidentally makes a wish and ends up waking up in a MASH game. So like mansion, apartment, what is it? Mansion, apartment, shack, house. Let me know if when you played MASH, you use different labels for those four. But she ends up in a real life MASH game, and I think the man that she ends up with in that game is somebody from her past. It's kind of giving 13 going on 30, except the opposite way, and I just feel like it sounds so fun. I think it's been getting rave reviews. I'm super excited to read this one. We've also got Habits of the Sea by Shay Earnshaw. This is a fantasy-esque gothic novel of sorts. It's about a woman who rediscovers a mythical island I think she used to visit as a kid, and there was a man that lived there, and when she goes there as an adult, he's still there and hasn't aged a bit. I think there's some romance. I'm definitely questioning on if the romance is with the same man because that might be kind of weird. I'm hoping that's not the case. Again, really good reviews, and this cover I am honestly quite obsessed with. Oh, and another magical realism romance. There's going to be a lot of them in this video. Like I said, I love magical elements in my romances, so if there's one coming out and it has good reviews, it's probably gone belong on the list. Every Version of You is by Natalie Messier. Debut novel getting incredible reviews. It's about a woman who's very successful in her life. She's 32, my age, but very single because she's been very focused on her own success in her own life, which as she should. And she's at a dinner party with friends, including this one friend that she's been pining after for years. And somehow she gets a second chance at life and goes back in time to college, I think, where she meets this friend of hers that she's always been pining for. So she gets like a second chance of kind of igniting a romantic relationship with this person. I love time travel. I love romance. This one also has great reviews. I can't wait to read this. Okay, our first historical fiction on this list, Summer of Love by Carrie Marr. I'm probably saying that wrong. This is set in the 60s in San Francisco. It's about three sisters whose parents own a Napa Valley winery. I think it's basically like three different sisters. One is probably going to inherit the winery and have to manage the winery. The other two maybe don't want to. And then I think there's another timeline in the future. So I'm not sure how the timelines connect, but this one sounds so good. I mean, it's about wine. It's in San Francisco. It takes place in the summer and the cover is gorgeous. We've got Summer People by Sally Blakely. I think this is like a situationship friends to lovers romance. I actually read her book that she released last year. That must have been her debut. I'm not 100% sure. That book is called Friends to Lovers and very much gave People We Meet on Vacation, except the male main character was hotter than his name in People We Meet on Vacation. What is his name? Poppy Alex. This one is honestly giving Happy Place a little bit. It's about a group of friends that have a reoccurring tradition where they spend a week in the summer at the same beach house every summer. There's supposed to be no romantic relationships, and I think two of them have some sort of fling every now and then. Then something happens, and then they reunite 5 years later, again at a week-long beach house trip, and I think we can guess what happens from there. While I don't always love second chance romances, I do kind of like when it was more of a fling type situation to start with, and I love friend groups with drama and chaos. I think it makes romance books so much more fun, so I will 100% be reading this. We've got Pretty Dead Things by Kelsey Cox. This is her second book. Last year she came out with her debut thriller called Party of Liars, which took place in Texas. This one does as well. That one was around a sweet 16 though. I'm embarrassed that I haven't read it yet. It's sitting on my shelves. I've had it since it released. I've wanted to read it. I just haven't yet. This one is surrounding a beauty pageant. I think basically somebody went missing one year. I don't know if it was during a beauty pageant. And then in the present timeline, the sister of the girl who disappeared, I think, is partaking in the pageant. I'm not sure, but everything basically comes to the surface, and I'm assuming you find out what happened to this missing girl. Sounds super dramatic, rich people problems, which I always eat up, and the cover is so fun. Okay, last one for the 7th is The Roommate Rule by Georgia Stone. You might recognize her from the author of The Friendship Fling, which was also her debut that came out last year. That was a friends to lovers romance that took place in London, another book that I haven't read yet but need to. I own that one too. This one is about two people that accidentally, well, I think it was on purpose, but they don't know each other and they're staying in a cabin together for the summer. I always eat up a romance to lovers because the forced proximity and tension is always so good, and it has great reviews and it takes place in the summer, so I'm obviously gonna have to read it. Okay, we've got a lot for July 14th, starting with The Romance Revival by Christina Lauren. Now, originally this would have been in my top 5 most anticipated, but I have been hearing that this is more of a sci-fi than a romance, and that is throwing me off. I will still be reading it, but I'm a little weary going into it. So this is a second chance romance of sorts, more like a marriage in turmoil romance. The couple in question, the husband has lost his memory, I think from an accident, and their marriage has been kind of on the rocks. So the wife gets basically like a second chance to fix their marriage. I'm not sure where the sci-fi enters the building and the romance exits, but the cover is giving like summer romance. If you've read this one already, let me know if you agree with the sci-fi label over the romance label. But I will read it either way because it's Christina Lauren and I usually eat up all of their books. They're usually hilarious, great banter, spice is perfect. So I'm hoping I get the same thing here. We've got The Parisian Heist by Jo Piazza. I actually have a lot of her books on my list and I have yet to read them. You might know her from The Sicilian Inheritance. This book, all you had to do was read me the title and it was going on my list. A heist that takes place in Paris. Like, I literally didn't need to know anything else. Although I will say it does have really good ratings. It's a historical fiction set in the 1800s in Paris. I think some famous paintings get stolen. So it's giving Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum a little bit, or, you know, the heist in the Louvre that happened. Was that last summer? I know it's a little bit of mystery and historical fiction mixed together, which is my favorite type of historical fiction. And also the cover, I need to read this one. We also have Extracurricular by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is her newest romance about a former pop star who decides to go back to college, and I think she falls in love with her professor, or maybe enters some sort of relationship with her professor, which I think it is considered forbidden romance from the perspective of you're not supposed to have a relationship with your professor, but they're both of age, obviously, which I kind of like that balances it out. I'm excited for this one. One thing I will say about this author's writing is that her spice always hits, at least for me. We also have A Date with Death by Kelly Craig. Definitely saying that wrong. This is a paranormal romance where the Grim Reaper, the official Grim Reaper, who falls in love with a child librarian whose soul he's supposed to collect. I don't even know what this book is going to be like, but the reviews look really great. The cover is fun, and I always eat up a paranormal romance. The Half-Life by Rachel Beanland is another historical fiction on my list. This is about an American woman who meets a naval officer and ends up marrying him and having to move to this small Italian island, and it takes place during the atomic age. So I think there's going to be a lot of government secrets involved. Probably has a lot to do with how atomic waste is like terrible for the environment. Maybe there's a little bit of a tumultuous marriage. I don't know, but it's getting rave reviews. Another fantastic cover. And I feel like I don't read enough historical fiction set in Italy, so I'm very intrigued by this one. Make Nice by Ryan Efgan is a contemporary fiction, and it's marketed as Sandwich Meets the Wedding People, which is telling me it's going to have the perfect sarcastic dry humor that I love, especially in a beach read. This is about a family that goes to like this luxurious hotel on Lake Michigan. And so I'm thinking it's giving family drama, rich people problems. It's probably incredibly funny, and I need to read this one. The Paddock Club by Madge Merrill, I think might be my first Formula One romance. I will say I'm not a Formula One girly, so maybe I need to educate myself. This is actually part of a series. The first book is Slipstream. That one doesn't have fantastic reviews, so I'm kind of hoping I can just go into the series with this book first. I'm assuming because it's interconnected romance, it'll be fine. This one is about a fashion influencer who has a side gig where she tricks terrible men into dating her so then she can dump them. It's kind of giving John Tucker Must Die, top tier rom-com movie. I hope that some of you watching know what I'm talking about. I believe the MMC is not one of the most terrible people. It sounds like he's the rival of a Formula One racer that she's trying to trick into dating her. So fun. Very excited to read this. Die For Me by Charlene Ubobi is another paranormal romance, this one with vampires. So obviously it went on my list. It's about a badass female cardiologist, I think the only female cardiologist at her hospital, and she's a bit older, and I think she meets this younger man, 11 years younger, and starts a romance with him, and I'm pretty sure he's the vampire in this situation. The cover is steamy. I am very excited for this. A little bit of a different vibe. We've got Everything to the Sea by Alicia Upano. I think this is a romance, maybe a little bit coming of age, litfic vibes. It's set in Hawaii, and it's about this young couple whose lives kind of get upended after a tsunami, and then they part ways, and I think eventually come back together. This sounds so good. Maybe has the potential to make me cry. I'm also obsessed with this cover. Last for the 14th is The Intrigue by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This author, I have a lot of her books on my TBR. The Bewitching Mexican Gothic. This is her newest book, and it I think has the same kind of dark Gothic vibes. Part historical fiction, part mystery thriller. It's about a con man who I think is trying to trick the owner of a boarding house to marry him so that he can steal all her money, and then I think her niece kind of figures out that he's suspicious. It has fantastic reviews, and just like the title, I am incredibly intrigued. Okay, randomly, one book out on the 16th that is on my list, The Last to Drown by Noelle W. Ely. This is the same author of Grey After Dark, which I loved, one of my favorite thrillers. She also wrote Ask for Andrea, which a lot of people love. I need to read it still. This is her newest thriller. It has fantastic reviews. It's about a group of rafters who I think get trapped because the raft flips over and then they're stuck in this wilderness area. I love a locked room situation. I always eat it up. Also, it's under 300 pages, so an additional reason for why I need to read this one. 5 books out on July 21st, starting with a book that I feel like will make anyone that reads it cry, and that is Dad Love Me, which is a memoir by Matthew Quick, the author of A Silver Linings Playbook. Fun fact, one of my favorite romance movies ever. I didn't read the book. I actually didn't even know it was a book first until literally right now. That definitely came out during the years that I wasn't reading. That's unfortunate. Maybe I should read that. Okay, anyways, so this is his memoir, and it's basically in letter format to his ailing father. I don't know why, because I feel like it's pretty much a guaranteed tearjerker, and that made me put it on the list. The New People by Andrea Upmore is a debut thriller, maybe not really thriller, maybe more mystery. It's about a newly married lesbian couple who move into a flipped foreclosure. Unbeknownst to them, the former homeowners still live in the attic. I'm not really sure who will win out the house. I'm assuming that's kind of what the entire book ends up being about, but it sounds very interesting and the cover is fantastic. Now this next book I think might be literally written for me. Just a Highland Fling by Naina Kumar is a road trip romance set in the Scottish Highlands between a woman and her one-night stand from a few days ago. So forced proximity, obviously there's going to be tension. I'm sure it's going to be funny. It's set in the Scottish Highlands. I mean, yeah, I need to read this. If Books Could Kill by Kate Eberl is another debut. This, I think, is part romance, part thriller, part magical realism. It's basically about a woman who makes a wish to live out the next novel of her favorite author in real life. And she does, but she ends up on a date with somebody that tries to kill her. And then somehow that results in her kidnapping an English professor. I don't know how it's all gonna work. It sounds like it's funny and the reviews are fantastic. And so it's on the list. And then we have Yes Chef by Grace Riley, which is getting rave reviews. I am hearing fantastic things. It's a romance between a chef whose restaurant I think is failing a little. So he makes a deal with a social media influencer to help him bring the restaurant back to life. I think there is somehow an enemies to lovers element to this as well. And also I think he teaches her how to cook. It sounds so fun. The cover is fantastic. I need to read it. Okay, and then 3 books on July 28th that are coming out that I really want to read, starting with Meet Me in Paris by Kristen Harmel, a historical fiction set in Paris, and it's about 7 intertwined love stories in Paris with a gorgeous cover. I need to read it. Literally say less. I will say I haven't read any of her books yet, but I know she writes a lot of books set in Paris, and I know she's a well-loved historical fiction writer, so maybe this will be my first of hers. Fishbone Cinderella by Elizabeth Lim is a Cinderella retelling set in China in the 40s. I think this one does actually stick to the Cinderella storyline pretty well. I do love a fairy tale retelling, and I do love that it's a historical fiction rather than a modern time fairy tale retelling, so this went on the list for sure. And I love the cover. Gorgeous. Last one on the list is The Good Parts by Evan Normandin, another magical realism romance. Obviously, we had to end the list with one because there is so many. So this is about a man who gets broken up with his girlfriend, and he then learns that she underwent a medical procedure that erased all of her memories. So I think he tries to insert himself back into her life to basically make her fall in love with him again. It's giving yearning, maybe a little slow burn, a little sci-fi. I need to read it. We made it to the end. I don't even know how many books that was. I'll put the final count here. Let me know in the comments if there are any that I missed that you're most excited for and which book you are most looking forward to reading that is coming out in July. And with that, I think I have to stop yapping. If you're new here, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. I post a new video every other Sunday and sometimes even multiple Sundays in a row. And next Sunday will be my June wrap up, so I hope to see you then. Bye!